Right now, like today, your next major career move might not even be decided by a human being.
No, probably not. It's wild.
Right. It might be decided by this tireless algorithm that's just, you know, analyzing your vocal cadence, tracking your use of passive verbs,
Passive verbs are a huge tract, yeah.
and mathematically calculating a trust score before a human recruiter even knows your name. So welcome to the deep dive. If you're listening to this, you're probably getting ready for an interview, right?
Right.
You sit down at your laptop, tidy up your resume, and you think you're just having a conversation.
Which is the biggest mistake you can make.
Exactly. Because if you step into the 2026 interview landscape with that mindset, you are walking blindfolded into a highly calculated psychological and financial game.
Yeah, it is a fundamentally different ecosystem than it was even, 5 years ago. If you don't understand the underlying mechanics of this game, the parsing algorithms, the cognitive frameworks human interviewers are using, the exact economic metrics they're grading you against, you've essentially lost the negotiation before you even log into the screening room.
And deciphering those mechanics, that is our mission for today. We've pulled together this massive, honestly fascinating stack of modern career prep materials to build a master playbook for you. We're looking at the 2026 Robert Half Salary Guide, executive search rubrics, financial independence frameworks, even university prep packets.
That's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. But to start, we really have to look at the gatekeepers. We actually got our hands on the product specs for a piece of software called Interview Flow AI, and let me tell you, the way it operates is a massive wake-up call.
It really is. Interview Flow AI represents the first major hurdle candidates are facing today. You apply for a position, and instead of a recruiter calling you to chat, you get this link to an automated phone, video, or audio screening.
Right, and there's no actual person on the other end.
Nope. These systems run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
And they use these custom AI voices and incredibly realistic avatars to create a simulated conversational environment. So, you feel like you're talking to Sarah from HR.
But Sarah's not real.
She is not. You are actually just feeding data into a real-time ranking engine.
Okay, so let's look at that engine itself, because the material notes that the AI is assigning a, quote, trust score.
Right.
Which initially, okay, that sounds totally dystopian. It sounds like I need to somehow charm a machine. Like, should I be smiling more at the webcam? Am I supposed to maintain this unblinking eye contact with the camera lens so it thinks I'm an honest person?
That's the natural instinct, right?
Yeah.
But it's completely backward. An algorithm doesn't understand charm, It understands structured data and statistical consistency.
Okay.
The trust score isn't a measure of your moral character. It's a calculation of your cognitive load and linguistic precision. The software is tracking how often you hesitate. It's measuring your keyword density.
Wow.
Yeah, it's analyzing whether your answers align semantically with the timeline on your resume.
So if I get nervous and start using a lot of filler words, or, if I just ramble because I'm trying to figure out my point halfway through a sentence.
Which is how normal people talk.
Right, but the AI interprets that cognitive load as a lack of conviction, doesn't it? It flags me as a high-risk candidate.
Precisely, which is the exact opposite of what you want. And another major trigger for the AI is the ratio of active to passive verbs.
Oh, I found this part so interesting.
Yeah. If you say, the project was completed and a 10% increase in revenue was achieved.
Sounds professional, right?
It does to us. But the algorithm flags that passive voice. It basically categorizes you as a passenger in your own story. To pass through this algorithmic gatekeeper, you have to feed it information in a rigid, highly parsable format. It needs to extract the problem, their specific action, and the quantified result easily.
Which means the way we naturally tell stories with meandering setups and lots of background context is actually a massive liability.
Absolutely.
This algorithmic demand for clean, structured data is the whole reason behavioral interview frameworks have become totally non-negotiable. The AI doesn't understand human nuance. It understands STAR.
Yes. The STAR method is the universal architecture of a successful answer now. Situation, task, action, result. We see this hammered home in both the Aspire AI Behavioral Mastery Guide and this highly effective interview prep packet we looked at from the University of New Mexico.
Right.
The structure forces you to deliver the exact data points the AI is scraping for in the exact order it expects to find them.
And there's a fascinating nuance here that I actually caught in the Wikipedia entry on performance frameworks. Some modern organizations have swapped out the task in STAR with target. So it's situation, target, action, result.
Oh, yeah, that's a brilliant pivot. When you reframe it from a task to a target, you fundamentally shift the psychology of your answer.
How so?
Well, describing a task usually implies an external mandate, right? Like your manager handed you a problem and you just handled it. But describing a target signals that you analyze the situation and define the goal yourself. It highlights intrinsic motivation.
I see.
Yeah, the AI and honestly, the human HR rep reviewing the transcript later registers a candidate who drives performance on their own initiative rather than just waiting for instructions.
It's subtle, but it completely changes the power dynamic of the story. Like,
Oh.
you are the architect, not just the contractor.
Exactly.
But regardless of whether you use task or target, people still butcher this format because they misunderstand the math of an interview answer. I look at it kind of like a badly edited
Oh,
movie.
for sure.
Right. Most candidates treat their answer like a 3-hour film where 2.5 hours is just pure exposition. They spend all their time setting up the backstory of your old company, explaining the org chart.
The whole history of the department, yeah.
Right. And by the time they get to the action sequence, the interviewer or, the parsing algorithm has completely tuned out.
That is the exposition trap, and it is totally fatal. The Nspire AI guide actually provides the exact mathematical timing you need to follow to avoid doing that.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so assuming a 2-minute answer, your situation, the context should only be 15 to 20 seconds, max. You give them the stakes and nothing else. Then your task or target is a single clear sentence taking maybe 10 to 15 seconds.
Okay, let me stop you there because capping the setup at 30 seconds sounds almost impossible if the problem you solved was highly technical. Like, how do you condense a massive engineering failure or, I don't know, a complex financial audit into 3 sentences?
You have to ruthlessly strip away the jargon and focus on the business impact.
Okay.
You don't explain the intricacies of the server architecture. You just say, our primary database was failing during peak traffic hours, threatening $1 million product launch.
Oh, wow. That's, what, 10 seconds?
Exactly. And the interviewer now understands the stakes perfectly. Because the reality is the action step is the only part of the answer that actually gets you hired.
The action sequence.
Yes, the action sequence. The action step should consume 60 to 75 seconds of your answer. This is where you detailed the specific sequential steps you took to solve the problem. And then you just land the plane with the result for the final 15 to 20 seconds, quantifying the outcome with hard numbers.
But inside that 60 to 75-second action sequence, there is a massive psychological trap. The Inspire AI material calls it the we trap.
Yes.
It's human nature, right? Especially if you're a good team player, to say things like, oh, we redesigned the onboarding process or we managed to calm the client down. But interviewers hate this.
They despise it, and algorithms heavily penalize it. When you use we, you're essentially seeking psychological safety by hiding in the group, but the company isn't hiring your former team.
No, they're hiring you.
Exactly. They need to assess your individual judgment and your specific competencies. So the action step must be aggressively first person. I ran the triage protocol. I designed the new framework.
But you don't want to sound arrogant, right?
Right, which is why you can and should share the credit in the results step. You say the team achieved a 20% increase. But the action step must be about your isolated contribution.
Okay, that makes sense. Another thing that kills your credibility is offering a hypothetical solution instead of a historical fact. So an interviewer asks, tell me about a time you handled a crisis. And the candidate replies, well, normally in a crisis, what I typically do is...
Oh yeah, that phrasing is a red flag. It tells the evaluator one of two things. Either you don't actually have the experience, or your cognitive recall is so poor under pressure that you can't access it. You must ground your answer in a specific historical moment.
Okay, but if you're listening to this and thinking, I have a decade of experience, how am I supposed to memorize a specific historical story for every single behavioral question they could possibly ask me? It feels overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they could ask about a failure, a conflict, a tight deadline, a difficult manager, or are you supposed to walk in with 50 different star answers memorized?
That is such a common misconception, and it's what leads to candidates sounding incredibly robotic, because they're trying to access this massive mental database in real time.
Right.
The strategy outlined by the University of New Mexico and Nspire is far more efficient. You don't need 50 stories. You just need to curate a core story bank of 5 or 6 highly versatile experiences.
It's like having a wardrobe of 6 perfectly tailored suits instead of a closet full of cheap clothes you never actually wear.
That's a great way to put it.
So what are the 6 core stories?
Okay, you want to prepare one story about a massive success or accomplishment, one about a catastrophic failure or mistake that you recovered from, one about a significant team conflict or a difficult personality you had to navigate.
That's a classic one.
Definitely. Then, one about a time you had to pivot under extreme pressure or tight deadlines. And finally, one about a time you demonstrated leadership without having official authority. If you map out those 5 or 6 experiences using the STAR framework, you've covered about 90% of the behavioral questions you will ever face.
Because you can pivot the emphasis depending on what they actually ask. Like if the story is about a time a major product launch failed, and they ask you about a tight deadline, you emphasize the timeline. But if they ask about conflict, you use the exact same story, but you spend your 60-second action step focusing on how you managed the angry stakeholders.
You've got it. You're rotating the story like a prism to show them the specific facet they're asking for. And that actually brings us to the most advanced technique in the Inspire AI guide, chameleonic storytelling.
I love this concept.
Yeah, having the STAR skeleton is just baseline competence. But to win the offer, the vocabulary and focus of your action step must completely mutate to match the specific cultural values of the industry you're interviewing for.
So let's break down how this actually works in practice. Let's say your core story is about dealing with a massive problem right before a deadline. If I'm interviewing for a tech role, I know they're listening for systems thinking, right? They want to know I understand technical trade-offs.
Right.
So my action step needs to sound something like, a production bug hit 12% of our users right before a major API integration. I immediately ran a triage to assess the blast radius, stood up a 48-hour war room, patched the bug in 31 hours, and successfully kept the main integration on schedule.
Okay, notice what you did there. You used specific terminology, API integration, blast radius, war room, to signal that you speak their language.
Right.
You demonstrated an analytical ability to weigh technical debt against product deadlines. But what happens if you take that exact same candidate with the exact same underlying competency of problem solving under pressure and put them in front of a consulting firm?
Well, if the tech interviewer is listening for systems architecture, the consulting firm doesn't care about the code at all. They care about the client relationship and structured thinking. So I'd have to completely change the framing.
You do. In the consulting interview, your action step focuses on the stakeholder management. You talk about the time a major hospital network wanted to expand a telehealth program, but your analysis showed they simply couldn't afford the $2.1 million infrastructure cost.
So you basically have to deliver devastating news to a client without losing the account.
Which is the core competency of a consultant. So instead of just saying no, your action step describes how you built 3 alternative financial scenarios with different investment thresholds. You led the presentation with a limited pilot program proposal, which solved their immediate problem and kept the client relationship entirely intact.
That is so smart. Okay, let's do one more pivot. What if that person takes their problem-solving skills to the nonprofit sector? I mean, they aren't looking for API integrations or multi-million-dollar client retention. They operate on shoestring budgets. They must be filtering for pure resourcefulness and mission alignment.
Right. So in the nonprofit sector, your action step highlights the time you lost your primary corporate sponsor right before a major demo day for 85 displaced workers.
Oh, man, a total nightmare.
Right. You didn't have the budget to rent a space. So you bartered with the local community college, trading co-branding opportunities for access to their computer lab, and you moved the actual event to a public library to save the program without spending a single dollar.
It is the exact same STAR structure, but you were speaking 3 entirely different dialects.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's raise the stakes even more. Let's say you've mastered the AI algorithms, you've built your story bank, and you can chameleon your way through any industry dialect. But now you're applying for a high-level executive or strategic leadership role. If I spend my interview talking about, I did this and I patched that bug, I sound like a great manager, sure, but I don't sound like a visionary. How do you make leadership leap?
This is where we bring in the rubrics from the 22 Strategic Leadership Guide. When you step into the executive suite, the interviewers are no longer testing your ability to put out fires. They're testing your ability to build the fire station.
I like that.
To prove that, your action step can no longer just be a list of tasks you performed. Your action step must demonstrate your reliance on structured, long-term frameworks to systematize chaos.
What does a long-term framework actually sound like in an interview context, though?
Well, the guide relies heavily on the classic 5-step strategic plan. Step 1, define the objective and vision. Step 2, create a mission statement.
Okay.
Step 3, perform a gap analysis, so identifying exactly what talent and resources are missing. Step 4, set SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, results-based, timely. And step 5, Establish a system to monitor progress.
So I just rattle those off?
No. When an executive search committee asks you how you handled a departmental turnaround, your action step is literally walking them through how you applied that exact 5-step framework to a disorganized team.
Got it. So you're proving to the board that your success isn't based on luck or just your personal charisma.
Yeah.
It's based on a repeatable methodology that can scale across the entire organization.
And the most compelling way to prove that is by showing you understand macro-level strategy. The leadership guide uses these examples of structural disruption. You don't just talk about a clever new marketing campaign you ran. You talk about understanding market shifts. Like how Tesla didn't just build a better car, they accelerated a global transition to sustainable energy. Or how Tinder didn't just build a better dating website, they fundamentally upended the market through app-based geolocation. You have to prove you see the whole board, not just the pieces.
But the executive suite isn't just about gap analysis and market disruption, is it? I mean, the hardest part of leadership is the human element. How do you use the STAR method to prove you have the emotional fortitude for the job?
The guide offers a brilliant scenario for this, the painful personnel decision.
Oh, there's the worst.
Imagine you inherit a team, and there's one employee who is just universally beloved. They organize the birthdays, everyone enjoys their company, but they are consistently underperforming and creating a bottleneck that is basically destroying the team's output.
That is the ultimate test. Because if you fire them, the team hates you and morale just tanks. But if you keep them, the project fails and you look incompetent to your bosses.
Right. So as a strategic leader, your action step details making the incredibly tough, unpopular call to transition that employee out of the role to prioritize the systemic health of the project.
Wow.
You explain how you absorbed the immediate anger from the team, communicated the new standards clearly, and how 6 months later that department became the most productive in the organization. It proves you will absorb short-term pain for long-term organizational stability.
When you lay it out like that, it's pretty undeniable. You've fed the AI the crisp data it needs for your trust score. You've delivered a chameleonic story that resonates with the HR rep's culture. You've proven to the executive board that you can systematize chaos. At this point, the psychological game is kind of over. They've decided you are the asset they need. Which brings us to the transition from proving your value to actually capturing it.
A financial transaction.
Yeah.
This is the culmination of the entire process. And to understand the stakes here, we turn to the philosophy of Yücel Beyazıt, a really prominent creator in the financial education space. He argues that the job interview is not just a hurdle to get a paycheck. It is the single greatest leverage point for your long-term financial independence.
Because he connects the negotiation phase directly to the FIRE movement, right? Financial independence, retire early.
Exactly.
If you view your starting salary just as money to cover your rent and groceries, you're thinking way too small. Beyazıt introduces this concept of your investment army. Every single extra dollar you negotiate during this window is another soldier deployed into the market.
I love that visual.
It's so good. If you negotiate an extra $10,000 on your base salary at age 28 and you invest that difference, compound interest turns that into a massive wealth ecosystem over the next 2 decades.
It fundamentally reframes your relationship with the negotiation. It's the foundation of your future freedom. But, knowing you need to negotiate and executing it successfully are two very different things.
Let's be real, yeah.
The first unbreakable rule, supported by both the Robert Half Salary Guide and insights from Mosaic Search, is timing. You never, ever surrender your leverage by bringing up salary too early.
So what happens if a company asks for my salary requirements in the initial application or like that first AI screening? What do I do?
You bypass it if possible. You let the employer offer the first number.
But what if it's a required field?
If a system absolutely forces you to input a number to proceed, you provide a wide, flexible range, and you base it strictly on hard 2026 market data for your specific geographic location and role level. You never guess your worth, you benchmark it.
Okay, so let's say you make it to the offer stage. They expand a number. You know your market data says you should be getting 15% more. This is the moment where most people's hearts start racing and they freeze. How do you push back without losing the offer entirely?
This requires adhering to Beyazıt's golden rule of negotiation. Never argue for a higher starting salary based on personal needs.
Oh man, this is a trap I see people fall into all the time.
Oh, all the time.
They say, well, my rent just went up, or, my commute's going to be an hour longer now, so I really need a bit more money.
The company's budget is not tied to your rent. That's an emotional appeal, and it instantly weakens your position. This is a value-based business transaction. You must treat yourself as a high-performing asset.
Right.
You anchor your counteroffer strictly to the output you will deliver, the efficiencies you demonstrated in your star stories, and the objective market value of the skills you are bringing to their ecosystem.
But let's look at the reality of corporate budgets for a second. Sometimes the base salary is completely locked. Like they literally do not have the authorization to go $5,000 higher. If the base pay is a brick wall, do you just accept it?
Never. If the base pay is locked, you pivot to the rest of the compensation package.
Okay.
The Robert Half Guide emphasizes that salary is only one lever of value. You ask for a signing bonus. You negotiate for an extra week of paid time off. You ask for a home office build-out stipend or guaranteed funding for continuous education and certifications.
That makes total sense.
In many cases, negotiating an extra week of vacation and a flexible hybrid schedule will deliver significantly more value to your quality of life than a slight bump in taxable base pay.
And the data from Robert Half points out something really revealing. 41% of candidates say their biggest hurdle in all of this is simply not knowing what is actually negotiable.
Yeah.
We treat this business transaction with so much anxiety, but when you look at everything we've discussed today, the anxiety really just stems from a lack of structure.
Exactly. Preparation removes the emotion. When you have quantified your results, when you know your exact market value, and when you have your 6-story star bank ready to deploy, you aren't begging for a job. You are offering a proven, quantified asset to a buyer who needs it. Star isn't just an interview technique, it's your leverage.
Let's pull all of this together for you. Navigating the 2026 landscape means recognizing that you first have to bypass an AI gatekeeper that is mathematically scoring your vocal delivery and semantic structure. You feed it the clean data it craves by building a 6-story bank using the star architecture. You strictly limit your exposition to 20 seconds and spend the bulk of your time detailing your specific first-person actions.
The I, not the we.
Yes, the I. You mutate the vocabulary of those actions to match the cultural dialect of the industry. And if you're aiming for the executive suite, you elevate those actions into long-term strategic frameworks. Finally, you use the undeniable value you've proven to negotiate a total compensation package that fuels your long-term financial independence.
It is a rigorous, demanding playbook. But as we wrap up, there is a broader implication to all of this that I think is really worth considering.
Oh.
Yeah. To succeed in this landscape, we are increasingly training ourselves to communicate in perfectly optimized, mathematically timed star formats.
True.
We do it to appease parsing algorithms, and we do it to satisfy human evaluators armed with grading rubrics. But as we consistently force our memories, our complex failures, and our professional identities into these highly standardized narrative boxes,
Or just playing a game?
that's the question. Are we merely adapting how we interview? Or over time, are we fundamentally rewiring the way we actually think, communicate, and behave with each other on the job?
Wow. That is a staggering thought. If the only actions that hold value are the ones that fit neatly into an algorithm's 60-second rubric, what happens to the messy, unquantifiable, collaborative parts of just being a human being at work?
It's definitely something to think about.
It really is. That's definitely something to chew on as you prep for your next big move. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Now go out there, build your story bank, and go play the game.